Two old friends, Fannie and Freddie. We're talking about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Why the government still has them under conservatorship. Maybe should they be privatized in 2025? Do we even remember what happened in 2008 and what caused the government to take over? We're going to be going over the pros and cons, what's going on with it, and basically finding a conclusion about what's best for the economy and for the trillions of dollars of mortgage-backed securities. Something that I find interesting that you should too, because it affects millions of households around the country. Should Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the backbone of America's mortgage market, be privatized? These two giants play a massive role in helping Americans buy homes, but their future is under scrutiny. To understand the privatization debate, we first need to know what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do. So let's start with their history though. Fannie Mae, or the Federal National Mortgage Association, was created in 1938 during the Great Depression. Now the goal was to make home ownership more accessible by buying mortgages from banks, giving lenders the cash to issue more loans. This created a steady flow of money into the housing market, with helping families afford homes. And then Freddie Mac, or the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, came later in 1970 to compete with Fannie Mae and expand on the mortgage market further. Both are what we call government-sponsored enterprises, or GSE. Okay, so you hear me say that, GSE, government-sponsored enterprises. They don't lend directly to home buyers, but buy mortgages from the lenders. They package them into securities and then sell to investors. They also guarantee these securities, ensuring investors get paid even if borrowers default. But here's the key. The government-sponsored status gives them an implicit government guarantee. Investors believe that if Fannie or Freddie Mac ever fail, the U.S. government will step in to save them. This lets the GSEs borrow money at lower rates, which helps keep mortgage rates affordable for you and me. Together, though, they back about half of the $13 trillion U.S. mortgage market. That's huge. Now let's talk about privatization and why it's even on the table. The story takes us back to 2008 when the housing bubble burst. Remember that? When you can get a loan just by fogging a mirror? I mean, everybody kind of knew something was wrong. But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were heavily exposed to risky mortgages, and their losses were catastrophic. By September of 2008, they were on the brink of collapse, threatening the entire financial market. But basically, the U.S. government stepped in and they placed the GSEs into a conservatorship, essentially government control. So the government now controls these two entities that they created. But the Treasury pumped in $187.5 billion to keep them afloat. So it's $187.5 billion. Taxpayers, we all bailed them out. So in return, the government took a controlling stake, and since then, Fannie Mae and Freddie have paid back the bailout. So they have paid it back. Plus, they've also paid hundreds of billions of dollars in profits to the Treasury. Okay, fantastic. It sounds great, but here's the catch. They're still under government control in 2025, 17 years later. That implicit guarantee, the belief that the government will always back them, remains, and it's a double-edged sword. It keeps mortgage rates low, but puts taxpayers on the hook if things go south. So why is privatization a big deal in 2025? There's several factors that are driving the conversation. First, political momentum. Let's just call it what it is, President Donald Trump. Policymakers across the spectrum want to reduce government involvement in markets, and ending conservatorship is seen as a step toward that. So the GSE's profitability since 2008 has also fueled arguments that they're stable enough to stand on their own. Second, the housing market is under pressure. Rising home prices, interest rates in 2025 are making affordability a top concern. Some argue, privatization could spark competition and innovation to address these changes. Others worry it could make it worse. Okay, more on that in a moment, though. We'll get back to that. But finally, there's the issue of systemic risk. Okay, the longer Freddie and Mac and Fannie Mae stay in conservatorship, the more the government is tied to the housing market's ups and downs. With a national debt climbing and economic uncertainty in 2025, many want to cut that cord and shift the risk to the private sector. Now let's break down the case for privatization. Here are the top pros. You got less risk for taxpayers. But right now, if Fannie or Freddie fail again, taxpayers could foot the bill. Privatization would shift that risk to private investors, anybody else willing to take up the loans, then they would protect the public funds. It also increases more competition. Privatization could end the Fannie-Freddie duopoly, inviting new players into the mortgage market. More competition might mean better services, lower costs, and basically a better all-around turnout for borrowers. Also, the free market principles, privatization aligns with reducing government's role in the economy. Without that implicit guarantee, the market would price GSE debt more accurately, reducing distortions. And also efficiency gains, as private companies, Fannie and Freddie, would need to compete, pushing them basically to cut costs and to innovate. That could mean savings passed on to lenders and ultimately us as home buyers. Those were the pros. Let's talk about the cons now. Okay, at this point, you could see higher mortgage rates. Without the government guarantee, Fannie and Freddie would pay more to borrow, and those costs could push mortgage rates up. In 2025, with affordability already strained, this could hit home buyers hard. And then you got less support for affordable housing. The GSEs are required to back loans for low-income borrowers. Private companies might prioritize profits over this mission and basically reduce access to home ownership for underserved communities. Basically, they want to make a profit, and they're not going to have the people that could possibly not pay their loans back. And then there's the transition risk as well. Moving Fannie and Freddie out of conservatorship could shake up the $7 trillion mortgage-backed securities market. It's a messy transition, and it might cause volatility or even disrupt lending as a whole. And then you remember the whole too big to fail 2.0. I mean, even as private entities, their size makes them critical to the financial system. Without strong regulation, we could end up with the same risk that led us to the 2008 crisis. In conclusion, should Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac be privatized? It's a tough call. Privatization could free taxpayers from risk and spark competition, but it might also raise mortgage rates and sideline affordable housing. In 2025, this housing affordability at the forefront, any move to privatize will need careful planning to avoid market chaos. So what do you think? Should we keep government safety net or let the market take the wheel? Drop your thoughts in the comment. And if you want more information about affordable housing or renting in America, look for other videos in our playlist. We've done a few basically going back and forth about what's happening right now in the market. But anyway, as always, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this. If you did, hit a like. If you're not subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button for more insights on issues shaping our economy and continue to strive to look for the truth between lines.